Chapter 23. Ellis felt strange and brutal, no longer afraid but not sure what had taken its place. He moved as a giant, his arms rained death, and the sensor screen in front of his eyes showed a world far away. But he was there too, a part of this giant's world. The suit had carried him to the loading dock, the drones in front of him screeching, hissing, and he could feel where the men were, where Teep was. Coordinates slid across the screen, showed him how to get there, but the Max already knew. It wasn't a feeling so much as a need, to be at the signal that called to them. I am Brian, he thought, but that was far away too. The door to the bay was open, and he saw through it, through the wall itself to the attackers. Dozens. 33, first 011.2 away. Of drones etched in brilliant shades of pale green. The screen was his view, the sensors of Max his eyes. His thoughts were informed by the machine, shaping them into a calculated and precise consciousness. Just as his physical body was led now to raise his, Max's arms and target the enemy, his numb fingers the segue between thought and action. The Max decided how best to eliminate the obstacles between him and Teep, so fast as to be instantaneous. Ellis responded, and the left arm raised, spat out 3 M38 grenades to land just inside the entry. Even as they exploded, the pulse rifle tracked and fired at the drones that would escape the primary blast diameter. The Max stepped forward, through the open door. The sensors accounted for the movement, and the caseless rounds tore through alien bodies. Ellis felt something like satisfaction as the sensors tracked and measured the scattering pieces of smoking flesh, fed him the information, and stored it for reference simultaneously. Satisfaction? Fulfillment? It was what he'd been designed for. I am Brian, he thought again, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the signal that summoned him, urging him onward. He forced himself to speak, the words an eternity of insufficiently accurate communication. I'm in the docking bay, said Ellis, and the sensors ignored the superfluous sounds as Max rained fire across a row of eggshells that littered its path. He heard a voice and struggled for 0.03 of a second to register the meaning. Ellis, you gotta hurry. It's open. The egg's open. Jess. That's Jess, and Teep is too damn late. There were 4 drones behind him, and Max reversed its rifle arm and fired, 3 of them falling, screaming as the bullets ripped through their bodies. The 4th had already leapt at the back of Max's head, its limbs outstretched, balancing by a frantically whipping tail. Max's massive arm followed the motion, the torso pivoted, and dealt a crushing blow to the creature's elongated skull with the angled tip of the grenade launcher. Acid spattered and flew. Ellis, you have to hurry, Jess needs you, said Lara. And he heard her, the voice soft and cool, the voice that helped him. Ellis increased the pressure of his feet, pushed down into the stirrups. And Max moved forward. 1, 2, and the ship was there. A yawning green opening, turbulent with shrieking life. The M210 flamethrower ejected a blast of liquid fire over the first 7 of the attackers that poured out. Ellis stepped through the flames and into the hive, the beacon singing to his program in numbers and codes. Lara had punched up Jess's helmet cam and watched as the hatchling in front of him edged its sticky legs into the air, her heart pounding. Ellis, hurry, she said again. And then Max was there, surrounded by fire. Jess's trembling cam whipped around, picked up the Berserker, and then turned quickly back to the creeping facehugger. Lara could hear his laboured breathing, the fear in each panting gasp. Oh, Jesus, hurry, Jess said softly, and Lara suddenly realised what she'd forgotten. Cut out. She kept her voice cool but spoke quickly, her stomach knotted with dread. Ellis, disregard the targeting system. Repeat, disregard the targeting system. Jess isn't wearing a cutout. Do you copy? There was no response, and all she could see was the facehugger, the tail coiling beneath it. Shit, whispered Jess, and the monster leapt, its wet legs spread wide, and was suddenly knocked out of the picture, blown out of sight in a controlled burst of ammo from off-screen. "Copy," said Ellis. Lara blew out slowly, the relief too great for words. For a moment she'd been sure that Ellis had become lost to the suit. A drone ran towards the screen, towards Jess, and Max riddled its lithe form with bullets, acid splashing to the floor of the ship. Pop spoke then, his first communication with Ellis since asking if he could find Teep. "You're doing real good, Ellis. Maybe we got you on the wrong job, son." The bluff, overly friendly tone made Lara grit her teeth. "What an asshole you are, Eric." Max pivoted the flamethrower over its shoulder and sent fire at another drone. The bug shrieked and fell into the flames, thrashing. "Fuck you, Pop," said Ellis, and Lara grinned tightly. Pop didn't answer. There was a low hiss coming from somewhere, low and then rising into an insane pitch, becoming a shrill, terrible cry of fury. Jess's camera turned, and Lara could see the source of the inhuman rage, knew already that it was the Queen. Her massive, towering form filled the shadows at one end of the cargo hold. Even 20 meters away, she was gigantic. Her multiple arms spread wide, the sweeping black comb of her crown the size of a normal man. Max stepped forward and opened fire. A patter of grenades launched, and the pulse rifle full on. Bullets tore at her thickly plated body, the grenades bursting and cutting her legs out from underneath her monstrous form. Screaming, she crumpled to the deck in a wash of acid blood. And as simple as that, the Queen was no more. For a few seconds nobody spoke, and nothing moved. The scent of frying acid and burned rotten flesh was thick in the hazy air. Flames hissed, licked softly against webby strands of alien secretion low to the floor. Jess looked up at Max, not sure of what to say. The display of power had been frightening in its intensity, and Jess didn't mind admitting that he was a little afraid of that much power, no matter whose side it was on. "Ellis, can you cut me loose?" The Max raised one massive limb and took a step closer. Jess stared up at the Berserker, the suit pocked with scrapes and acid splash, and saw an M41 strapped to one hip. "You remembered your rifle," he said, and smiled hesitantly. He'd been through a hell of a lot and he ached, body and soul, but he suddenly felt like it was nothing compared to what Ellis had done. The kid had risked his life to save Jess's and Teep's, and had willingly volunteered for a partial lobotomy to do it. "Didn't even need it," said Ellis, his voice shaky. It was disconcerting to hear his voice on the set when he was inside the Max suit, less than a meter away. Max carefully pushed its huge right arm into the webbing over Jess's head, crushing and tearing the dried material that held him captive. In a few more gentle pushes, Jess was free. He walked around behind Max and unbuckled the sling of the pulse rifle, the familiar weight of it good in his trembling hands. He turned to Teep and felt his throat tighten. The facehugger was still attached, but a poke from Jess's rifle and it fell away dead. One of Teep's eyes was open, glazed and unseeing, but he still drew breath, long and slow. He'd been seeded, and Jess had a promise to keep. "Rest now, Teep," he whispered, and placed the barrel of the M41 against Teep's forehead. He flicked the selector to single fire, and squeezed the trigger. Teep's thin and tired body jumped, convulsed once, and it was over for the point man, blood coursing over his face, covering the open eye mercifully with a sheet of red. "Two dead," said Jess, and he felt the anger rise up inside, threatened to overwhelm him in its cold and deadly grasp. "Two good men, Pop. Damn you! You and the fucking company, Teep and Candyman, are dead, you fuck! They're dead and it's your goddamn fault." Pop's voice was rigid, tightly controlled. "Plenty of time to cuss out whoever you like when we've finished your job, mister. Locate the primary console and begin transfer of the data log to Nemesis." There was a pause, and Pop added, I'd hurry if I was you, Ground Leader. There are a lot of bugs still on that station. Could be anywhere. It almost sounded like a harmless observation, but Jess figured differently. The implications were perfectly clear in the thinly veiled threat, and he shook his head slowly, stunned into silence. Pop was holding all the cards, and Jess would perform whether he liked it or not. Or Pop won't let us leave, his mind finished. And the rage he felt was held in check only by the awareness that Pop Izzard was gonna pay for this when they got back to base. Pop and the company. I'm sorry, Teep, Ellis whispered, and Jess looked up at the Max. Imagined that he could feel the young man's sadness radiating from the giant suit. It's okay, Ellis, he said gently. There's nothing you could have done. Just hold on in there. We'll get you out as soon as we can. Jess stared at Teep's ruined face for a moment longer, then shouldered his rifle and went to find Ops in the devastated ship, Max trailing heavily behind.